elicitation techniques, and neurogenesis. Employees, specifically medical physicians, nurses, and practitioners of Medicare, have been told to isolate when sickly symptoms are self-determined. They've been told to wear a mask, what is evident of a saliva and mucus vector of contamination. They've been told to take a jab for infection prevention. Yet the vaccines specific to mRNA transfusion and protein manipulation of cell membrane transmission prevention and doctored foreign cellular instruction in place have been synthesized as a filtrated dualism easily correlated to a nanogel osmosis, microdot synthetics, and molecular diffusion. Listen up, hotel staff. We are responsible for our integrities of origin. Furthermore, there has been incidents of physicians, social workers, and nurses whom are reporting in sickly. It is subtly apparent of a possible discrepancy and aligned causation of neurogenic psychosis and symptomatic parasitic emphasis of brains and synapses attacked manually, of same patterns of production specific to editing processes, with neurally transmitted hydrogenic, inorganic to organic designed compounds. To investigating the reasons for why such individuals have called in to report sickly symptoms and taken 2 weeks of leave or more is cause for concern, as the conductivity that has been established of manual transmission is evident of the malicious pathogens, evident of a recourse to methods of torment, terrorism, persecution, and establishment of bionic, cybernetic, and psychedelic foreboding as avenues of implementation. The biomass harvesting that has been performed, inclusive of neural sensitization via sensory inputs via external exotic means, is evident of a caustic corruption incited against brains and synapses of humans and other life forms, immediately evident of neurogenic dysfunction and a parasitic exposure of symptoms such as brain fog, retention issues, induced perturbance, instability as parasitic causality, deliberate as manual filtration, and automated diffusion as modes of infestation. A neurodegenerative viral pandemic specific to hydrogenic formulas of plasma discharge, and thus saliva vectors and potential mediums via such as syphilis, gingivitis, influenza, herpes, rabies, and tuberculosis, as further example of neurodegenerative viral endemics via microbial infections, example of Toxoplasma gondii, Crohn's disease, and Whelan's disease, as though further exacerbated as pandemics and airborne viral epidemic. Pneumonia symptoms to do of respiratory bacterial infection is possible vectors of a hydrogenesis transmission and a fungal vector of neurological diffusion. Gaseous vectors and perspiration as transmitted distilling, specific as proximity, and an omniconductivity specific to hydrogenic lacing and thus plumes is also a very real possibility, as perspiration via sweat glands is subtly evident of a nanogel osmosis and microdroplet infusion and a manual antagonized filtration resulting of a molecular diffusion. A conduction of energization combined of a electrolyte conductivity, i.e. saline water, is possible of a induction of cyber-facilitated mnemonic, harmonic, and imaged suggestion as modes of biohacking and filtered acclimatization as cognitive disorders decline and deterioration. Furthermore, emphasis of the cybernetic biotechnical induced harboring and abrasion upon targeted, tracked, and fixated victimized corporeal organics, that is again subtly apparent of a virtual remote viewing vector of cyber-lacing and transmission, a generic uniform conformist repurposed neurogenic to psychogenic catatonic zombification threat specific to senescence cellular osmosis, and a molecular nano-facilitated diffusion focused against the brain and a synaptic imposure of hydrogenic formation of psychological, sensory and biological exotic printing, evident of a green screening vector weaponized as formulas of exotic apothecary and alchemy. As modes of warfare via holographics, the evident discrepancies briefly clarified is significant possible to probable avenues, as certainties of mobile brain data and neural linkage, as mobile streaming and ghosting, a bionic architecture and construct of macroviral abrasive bionics, as projected supplements and substitution threats via habitualized, naturalized and acclimatized pseudonym distilling as modes of harvesting and impressioned possession, thus the faculties of curriculums of applied progressions of education and advancement, is evident of the synchronicities involved combined of a neuroinfestation of domination via thought form filtration. The photonic lacing and visual imprinting upon pitch of dark is also evident of a pseudoscience dianetic chemistry in physics and a animalistic feral behavioral syncing that is apparent of such paranormal activity and parapsychology vectors and neural synaptic activity as meridian bioenergetics weaponized as repurposed bioplasmic vectors of bionic to exotic Cylon gradients of holographic subnet mask, gateways and elicitation techniques, especially when considering a renegade paramilitarism operating as a cloaks and daggers exotic espionage. A macroviral synthetic superorganism can't be ruled out as the facilitation of modes of harvesting, bioengineering, bioplasmic exposure, imposed constriction, lobotomy over duration, soft and hard kill processings is subtly apparent to the unfamiliar of the malicious threats involved as esoteric echelons and degrees of foreboding apocalyptic threats via such conductivities. The threats are very real and you had better listen and do your own homework. Such is your natural obligation. Thank you for listening.